And Dan and Amy will be joining us from Mexico post-haste. But first, before he's got to go and be on Fox News, just like Brett Baer was an hour ago. When
I like Faisal Khan. Can we get to him?
We can, but Brett Baer blew us off after 13 minutes and literally went on to Fox News within 5 seconds. We saw him on television. Faisal Khan, thanks for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. I didn't get my Fox News invite yet, so I'm good.
Okay,
We're good.
Faisal Khan, head of Project 6, the government watchdog group. Sorry to hear that Project 6 is suspending regular investigative operations. I assume this is because there's no more corruption in the city of Chicago. You've done your job. It's time to move on. Is this?
Yeah, that's it. Pretty much, guys. You nailed it. Okay. We've knocked Chicago off the list. I'm now moving to New Orleans. No, unfortunately, that's not the case. You guys I can understand as any nonprofit, we're relying on funding, and it's a tough market right now. And when we do work such as what we were doing, there's not an individual return that a lot of people can invest into. The people who did invest in us, and we're very grateful for that.
Now, I know
believed in good government.
Right.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
There's a lot of There's a lot of good works that you did, and I suggest people go to your website. I do have a question. Tell me if it's beyond your area of expertise, but it's the thing that I'm totally hung up on, and that is the Laquan McDonald video. I mean, here is I would love an investigation into Rahm Emanuel. He claims that he didn't know about the Laquan McDonald video until after the judge ordered it liberated. But a lot of us, John Cass was the guy who led this fight, believe that Rahm knew about this before the primary against Chuy Garcia, and so he effectively disenfranchised African-American voters because they didn't get to know about this. I mean, how would you go about looking into this, and do you have an opinion on it?
Well, I think, I have an opinion. I think Mr. McCarthy, running for mayor right now, has pretty much admitted that Rahm Emanuel was involved with the video from the get-go. So I don't think it's a secret anymore. I think it's actually one of the worst kept secrets here in Chicago, that the mayor certainly knew about the video and was involved in when the tape was going to be released or not. So I don't think there's much to learn here at this point. The way I would go about it is, or what's a real indicative of it, is the fact that the mayor refused to turn over emails for the longest time until the Tribune and other organizations had filed lawsuits to get his emails. I bet if we put a couple of people under oath, we would know exactly when the mayor saw that video.
Exactly.
Well, Faisal, I am disgusted to hear that you guys are going away, because now all we're going to have is the pencil net geek Andy Shaw and the Better Government Bureau, and I'll have to pretend his daughter didn't go work for Obama and that he's really doing a good job. So I'm a little upset you're going, because I really wanted to know about your article here, the O'Hare expansion and the funding. See, I kind of like when it's the same old characters and maybe they change a name or two in their LLC, and we pretend it's not pay-to-play corruption where they are getting paid 5 times what they should to do a terminal that doesn't need to be redone.
I appreciate the kind words. And when we're not gone away forever, hopefully we can reevaluate this in a few months to see if there is some support that we can bring this back. At this point, right now, we have to suspend indefinitely just because of funding. You're absolutely right, though. There is a problem here in Chicago, and it's the same players with a different title, with a different organization name. And I think there's another story that just came out yesterday, guys, sometimes about the Bears, about the Chicago Bears and who provides security for them. And a company that's been providing security all over the country is in a lot of trouble, yet they have some significant political connections here. And therefore, they may get that contract. Yeah, shocking, right, guys?
Yeah, let me guess. Is there a zoot suit Ed Burke at the bottom of it with his green Rolex for drinking 1,000 bottles of Jameson? They just give it to you then. It's all the same nonsense.
It is, and that's the hard part. That's the sad part. That's why we're not going to be here to fight some of that. But I hope you guys keep shining a spotlight on that.
Well, it's interesting because it has to be people like Dan and Amy who do that, and since you're not going to be able to do it anymore, and I'm wondering if you had an opinion on the investigative journalism done by the media in the city of Chicago. It seems to me, I haven't been able to chronicle it as well. It's just anecdotal stuff. You get stories like Carol Marine and the Sun-Times going after Rauner because he allegedly bullied somebody, and that was Quinn's that was Quinn's campaign in the last gubernatorial election, and it was so thin because the case was dismissed on a motion for summary judgment. But that's all he had going for them. And you wonder, do they look into the kinds of things that you would look into and expose the corruption, on the Democratic side?
Well, look, I can only speak for myself, right, guys? The Project 6 investigations, quote unquote, done by the Sun Times about where our funding came from, Mick Dumke was one of the authors on that, and he told me straight out that he got his tips from politicians to run that story. And the investigation into a nonprofit, my nonprofit, as to who was funding us, made the front page of the Sun Times on 2 different occasions. A nonprofit that's accused of doing nothing wrong, that's never had to issue a retraction, that's never been questioned about it. Actually, it's investigative material. Simply was questioned as to who was helping us fund the office, made the cover of the Sun Times in this day and age.
That's because.
And I think that should tell you that
Go ahead.
the media is carrying the water for a lot of different people.
Well, this is like a guy like
Chicago.
It's like a guy, Dave McKinney of the Sun, formerly of the Sun Times, did the story with Carol Marine, okay, about Rauner and the case that was dismissed because of summary judgment. It wound up being it was really the entire campaign. If you watched NFL football on Sundays, that was the commercial that came on over and over and over again during that campaign, was about how Rauner bullied a woman. And McKinney is a great reporter. I mean, he's done a lot of great things, but he apparently had a conflict of interest because his wife was a consultant for the Democrats, and he shouldn't have even been on the beat, or there should have been a disclaimer on all his stories, and yet he'll fight that. But they'll go after you because you're trying to ferret out corruption on the Democratic side.
The reality is this government here in Chicago and Illinois is not interested in serving taxpayers.
Faisal,
that's the reality of it.
I've got a good cigar bet that the politicians you're referring to who wanted you investigated are the fraud Republicans who you were going after. It isn't the Democrats who you've consistently gone after because they have nowhere to hide. They know what's going on. They just want to keep it going on. It's the fraud Republicans who pretend to be in opposition that you were exposing, and that's where the problem you caused is in. So here's the good news. Florida, you know a really good real estate broker. In the south of Florida, you call me, I'll help you out.
It always comes back to Sean.
Yeah.
Talk about a conflict of interest.
I got to stay in business.
Okay.
I may take you up on that offer, buddy. I appreciate it.
Are you going to New Orleans like Brockmeyer did to do minor league baseball, which I just saw the other night? Seriously, what's your future?
It's a good question. I'm still kind of figuring that out at this point. I like what I do. I've been a career prosecutor. I like putting bad guys away, whether they're elected or appointed. So we'll see where this path takes us. I'm not giving up on Chicago yet, and I hope nobody else does.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it, Faisal. Thanks,
guys.
Thank you. Faisal Khan of Project 6.
See you at the airport.
You got a conflict, man. Although, you know
How
what?
do I have a conflict?
You know what the problem is?
I'm giving you the out. Are you going to pretend that Rauner and Pat Brady and these other scoundrels are different?
First of all, Pat Brady's a friend of mine.
Either you're in on the scam or you're too stupid to see it.
I
I
want to see a reconciliation between Dan Proft and Pat Brady. I'm hoping they will hug. I'm going to go to that May 22nd thing at the City Club between Pat and Dan, and like Phyllis George got Kathy Crowell-Webb to hug or asked her to hug her assailant. I'm going to try to get them to hug each other.
I just want to see Nancy Kimmy there so I could ask her how much she bench presses.
Now, one day our prince will come, and his name is going to be Louis Arthur Merrill Lynch Pierce Fenner and Smith, the new son of the King, Duchess and Duke of Cambridge. Hey, it's time for me to kiss you goodbye.
I can't believe it.
Let's listen to Dan and Amy first from Mexico on AM 560, The Answer.